All right, let's start corporate governance. Very important chapter. This is the only chapter where I use textbook slides. The rest of the chapters I use my own slides. So, the basic question in corporate governance is that why is corporate governance needed? Uh, how do we govern? How do we like keep an eye on the top management, on the managers of a firm, and why is it needed in the first place? So, what happens is that in small firms, like your roadside shop, or even in small firms, it's generally the owner and the top manager is the same, right? Because the manager or the owner, the manager is also the owner, and they have the maximum number of shares. If at all, it's a public firm. If it's a small firm, there's a good chance that it would not be a public firm. It would be a private firm. So ownership and top management is the same in that case. But when a firm is big, then owners have to hire managers to do their daily tasks to manage the firm day to day. And in that case, there is a chance that what the owners want, that is owners here mean which have the largest shareholding in the firm, what they want, that might not align with what managers are doing. So managers objectives, managers actions and steps may not align with the objective of the owners, that is largest shareholders. So that is why we need corporate governance, so that their goals align, right? And this is what we call principal agent problem. Principal agent, we have principal is the owner of the firm, and they hire an agent to do their task, which is the top management, CEO and top managers. And the alignment, because it's not the same, so that is why we call it principal agent problem or agency problem. There are various names for the same thing. So we will see that there are three main ways through which we can undertake corporate governance, which is ownership concentration, board of directors, and executive compensation. You will see each of them one by one. So the question they're asking here is, what factors account for the considerable amount of attention corporate governance receive from several parties, including shareholder activists, business press riders, and academic scholars? So what are these shareholder activists? Who are these shareholder activists? Shareholder activists are basically the people who get their demands fulfilled because they have some holding in the company, they have some shareholding, and they want their demands fulfilled in the board of directors meeting. What could those demands be? Those demands could be like restructuring of the board of directors. They are not happy with someone in the board. They want to change the executive compensation, like the Elon Musk compensation news that we discussed a few days ago. They want to pursue some merger, or they want to spin off, that is, they want to divest some business. They want some sustainable or ethical business practices. All these are demands which shareholders can undertake through their activism. Like we saw Elliott Management doing with Southwest. Remember? Right? Then who do this shareholder activism? There could be pension funds, right? We know pension funds where employees and employers both contribute towards retirement. So these pension funds have a motive to increase the amount for their beneficiaries, right? So these are institutions, right? And they become institutional investors. So they would invest their money in various stocks. And generally, these institutional investors or even majority shareholders, they would invest in various different stocks. That is, they would diversify their portfolio so that the risk gets minimized, right? So these institutional investors like pension funds can undertake activism, or uh, force the board to pursue their policies, the policies they want them to be pursued. Uh, and some examples are California Public Employees Retirement System, Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, and they differ from hedge funds. Uh, you guys might be familiar with hedge funds. Uh, the hedge funds are like who take a more risky investment than these institutional investors. So hedge funds uh, have more relaxed rules uh, for investment, and they are only available to accredited investors. That is, you should have a minimum level of income or assets, and so yeah, they are less regulated than mutual funds, and they can limit when investors can redeem their shares. So hedge funds also do this kind of investment. So I think Elliott Management was a hedge fund, if I remember correctly. Right? Any other examples that you can think of? Institutional investors or hedge funds? I mean, hedge funds are also in a way institutional institutions, so they could also be counted as institutional investors, I guess. I'm not sure.
I think you could also include asset managers and maybe pension funds.
Asset managers and pension funds? Yeah, what were you saying? Anybody else?
Wait, Professor, what was the question?
No, I was just saying that what all other examples can you think of hedge funds and institutional investors?
Like quantum group of funds. It is like the biggest hedge fund in the world.
What is the name?
Um, quantum group of funds.
Okay, okay. So it's a Chinese institutional investors or hedge
Nah,
fund.
it's
Chinese.
China. It's American.
Oh, it's American. Okay.
Yeah.
There's like Millennium, Bridgewater, like the one made by Ray Dalio.
Right, right, right. Yes. Yeah, Katie, you were also saying something. I couldn't hear properly. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was just saying that other examples of institutional investors could be an asset manager or a pension fund.
Right, right. Yes, yes. Right. Okay. Yeah, so these all institutions and hedge funds, they can undertake activism and get their demands fulfilled through, their presence in the board of directors. Yeah, as I said that when the firm is small, their ownership and management is the same, right? But when the firm gets bigger, then uh, there's a there's a difference between the management and the ownership, and that is when we need corporate governance. So let's see this question. Commonly, those managing small firms own a significant percentage of the firm, which means there is what's the what's the answer?
I think it'd be B.
Hmm?
B.
Yeah, yeah, it's D. It's pretty simple. So yeah, owners are the principals. They hire managers who are agents that maximize the firm's value. And the task assigned to the managers is that maximize the value of shares, right? Give maximum profit to shareholders. That is the task assigned. But we have seen that sometimes managers might take decisions which might be detrimental to shareholders, like, for example, uh, engaging in useless mergers and acquisitions, engaging in useless internationalization, right? Or announcing new products which are uh, not beneficial for the firm, or it could be anything, even at top level, something else could also happen, like passing on the information to your rivals for some benefits, financial benefits, or some other benefits. You get honey trapped or something, anything could happen, or you plan to switch the firm in the coming future, in the near future. So you're not really serious about the current firm because you have got offer from some other competitor, better offer. So could be any reasons, hundreds of reasons could be there. So that is why uh, owners need to supervise or keep an eye on the managers, what they are doing. So the costs that I mean, costs that the owners spend on, to keep an eye on the managers are called agency costs. These agency costs could be incentive costs, like you have to give extra incentives to the top management to take the right decisions for the firm, monitoring costs, enforcement costs, or individual financial losses. All these are in total called agency costs. And the bigger the firm, the higher would be the agency costs, right? So if the firm is very diversified, you would have to spend more time and energy and money to monitor the top managers. So let's see this question. Why do principles establish governance and control mechanisms?
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. A, right? To prevent agents from acting opportunistically. So let's see the first way of governing the firm, like monitoring the top management, which is ownership concentration. So you would have seen this either with yourself or with your friends that when you join a new company, when you start your job, in many cases, the company would offer you stocks as a part of CTC. Have you seen that? Have you observed that with your friends or, maybe yourself as well? So, like, I have seen with many of my friends, and when I was in my undergrad, many firms used to do that. I remember Amazon used to do that, especially. CTC is called cost to company, right? So when they come to campus and when they announce that how much they would be offering uh, to the candidates, they would announce that our CTC is say 100K, 120K, 150K, whatever, depending on the firm. And in that, the breakdown would be that say uh, 140K is the CTC, and they would write that 100K is the salary and 40K are stocks. Okay, so if 40K worth of stocks they are giving you, that means you definitely have an incentive to perform well for the firm because that would raise the stock price of the firm. And what they used to do, they would write that down in the rules that you can cash the stocks only after 2 years or 3 years, which means you will have to stay in the firm for at least 2 to 3 years. Because what candidates generally do, especially at the beginning of the career, that uh, within 1 year or 1.5 year, they will start applying to other firms to switch, right? And these firms think that they spend so much time, energy, and money in training you that should not go waste. And you will also take those skills to their rival firms. So they would place a condition that if you have to cash those stocks, then you have to wait for 2 years or 3 years. Now, Amazon used to give very high number of shares. Like I remember that it used to be a big part of the CTC, and Amazon used to pay really well uh, in my undergrad. And but almost 40% of the CTC used to be stocks, right? But there was a condition that you can only cash it after 2 or 3 years. I don't remember the exact number of years. So that is what this means, ownership concentration. That if you uh, give good ownership to the top management, to the CEO, CTO, CMOs, and all, then they would be motivated to increase the share price and work in that direction, which would automatically ensure good governance, right? So, what are large blocks shareholders? Large block shareholders are who own at least 5% of a company's issued shares. And in recent years, the number of large block shareholders has declined, and they have been replaced by institutional owners. And if the ownership is very diffuse, that is, if a lot of people have 2, 3, 4% ownership, but none of them have a big number like 15%, 20%, then it would be very hard to monitor the firm, monitor managerial decisions. Corporate governance would become difficult. So if you have to be strict with corporate governance, then there should be uh, concentrated ownership, concentrated, large block shareholders. Like for example, what is ownership? What is the percentage of Elon's ownership in Tesla? How much do you think he owns?
I think it's like 14%.
Yeah, yes, 14, 15%, something like that. Yes. It's not that he owns like 50% or 60%, but still he has uh, a good say in the decisions, right? So even 15% is okay to have some influence on the decision making. Then institutional owners, we already know what they are. In US, institutional owners own majority of the stocks. Like 60 to 75% of the equity in US firms is held by institutional owners. And they generally invest for long durations, which is called patient capital. So they have patience and they would invest for long runs, like several years. They would wait for the stock to increase. Then those who own a very large percentage of shares, they would keep an eye. They would do the job of monitoring the CEOs, and they would get their demands fulfilled in the board of directors meeting. So that is how ownership concentration plays a role in corporate governance. So basically, these shareholder activists, they can even dismiss the CEOs and top management if they are not happy with their performance. And if they are not present in the board meetings, they can send someone on their behalf. So proxy vote. So say Elliott Management, BlackRock, or some other uh, institution or hedge fund who want to get some decision passed or approved in the meeting, they would send their representative who would have the voting right, and they would get their demand fulfilled. And sometimes these activist investors, they also join forces in what we call wolf packs. So proxy vote is what is happening with the this Warner Brothers and Paramount and Netflix issue as well, right? If you read the link that I posted in yesterday's chapter, last slide, I did not show the slide in the lecture, but I had posted a link on the last slide of yesterday's chapter. How Paramount is thinking of engaging in proxy fight with Warner Brothers so that they agree to their offer, right? Hostile takeover offer. So proxy vote is when these shareholders delegate their voting power to a representative who can vote on their behalf at shareholder meetings, and they get their demands related to board elections, executive compensation, shareholder proposals to be fulfilled. Right. So, all right, we have been using this term, board of directors, so much, but what is board of directors? What do we mean by board of directors? Do you guys, can somebody define uh, board of directors for us?
A board of directors is basically sometimes depending on the company they can be voted in, like voted into the board, but basically they are just there to make decisions in the best interest of the company and the owner.
Right. And they are comprised, so it is comprised of who make board of directors? Who are these people? Are they from the firm? Are they outsiders?
I think again, depending on the company, it could be a mixture of both, but it would be a lot of top level management, potentially any like people who are in like the C-suite, and then any stakeholders that have um yeah, any potential stakeholders in the company as well.
Right, right. Correct. You're correct. So it could be both insiders as well as outsiders and some related outsiders as well. So, as Efsa said, these are people who have long experience, long management experience, and so that is why, because they have long experience, they have a lot of resources, like a lot of connections and insights regarding functioning of the firm. So, and there could be insiders like firm's top level managers, like CEO, CMO, CTO, and all. Related outsiders like a firm that you have some relationship with. So that could be your suppliers, distributors, or some other, part of your supply chain or some firm that you are related with in some sense. And then outsiders, like completely outsiders, so could be some automobile firms CEO could be on the board of an FMCG or a restaurant chain's board of directors. So that firm's that firm's operations have nothing to do with this person. It could be complete outsider as well. And there has been a debate whether top managers and board should give the shareholders of an organization a higher priority than other stakeholders. So, of course, uh, sh- increasing the value of shareholder shares is not the only priority of the firm, or should not be the only priority of the firm. But we have to keep in mind other stakeholders as well, like uh, there's something called benefit corporation. Benefit corporation means that we have to pay attention to public benefits as well besides profits, right? And it should be obvious that, of course, uh, shares are not the only thing that should be on the mind of top management. Then, historically, it was the inside managers who were dominating a firm's board of directors. There are both pros and cons of that. Well, the pro is obvious that if you are an insider, if you are involved in the day to day working of the firm, you know the most about the firm. You know what projects are you working on, what projects the firm is undertaking, what is the progress of those projects, what are the employees thinking. So they basically know the most about the firm. Nobody else can know as much as them. So obviously, they should be a part of the most important decision making, which happens in the board of directors. But that would also mean that they can also hide their incompetencies, or the problems the firm is facing, or the drawbacks of their skills or lack of skills, for that matter, right? So it's a double-edged sword that they can be there are definitely benefits of them, of having them on the board of directors, but there are also disadvantages. So that is why many critics advocate that there should be a good number of outside directors as well on the board. But the problem with outside directors is again the same thing, that they are not familiar with the working of the firm. So how can they make a decision that top management is doing a good job or not? How will they assess that when they do not know what happens in the day-to-day working of the firm? So one proposal is to reduce the power of the CEO, to separate the chair's roles, that is chair of the board of directors roles and the CEO's role, so that the same person does not hold both positions. When the same person holds both positions, it is called CEO duality, which might be needed during a time of recession or high economic uncertainty, because at that time only a CEO can sail the boat well, because he knows that what is required for the firm to go through these tough times. Only he knows the best for the firm. So that is why that CEO duality could be needed in the time of difficulty. So yeah, a problem with outside board members is that how will they assess the performance of the top management when they do not know uh, the working of the firm? So there should be some optimization, some optimum balance between the two. Some insiders are needed and some outsiders are also needed. So what could the board do? Increase the diversity of the backgrounds of board members. So have people from different backgrounds, some from HR, some from accounting, some from different sectors, and have more transparent accounting control systems, and modifying the compensation of directors, especially reducing or eliminating stock options as part of their package. What does it mean? What does it mean, and why do they do that sometimes? So basically, they are removing that, the payment for the board of directors, that would not happen, that would not take place in the form of stock options, but as one-time cash payments, or fixed cash payments, but they would not get any stocks as part of their compensation, the people who are in the board of directors. Why would they do so? What could be the objective?
To try and keep like power balanced. So, because the stock option would give a board of director member if they got more and more percentage of the decision.
Anybody else?
Would it be to like align the board of directors more with shareholders' interests? Because like if you have too much equity that's given to the board of directors, they might have like an incentive to unfairly raise the stock price.
Right, right. So if they so people on these board of directors are sometimes for a short duration, like 1 year or 2 year, they might not be a part of the board for, say, very long durations. So if they get the payment in the form of stock price, then there is a chance that they would be inclined to take a decision that would increase the stock price in the short run, and not necessarily a decision that is in the favor of the firm for the long run, right? So instead of being myopic or short term focused, they want the board of directors to be long term focused. So that is why generally firms do not pay people on the board in stocks, right? So that is the logic behind that. Then you can also create a lead director that has strong powers with regard to the board agenda. Which lead director is what? Just like a chairman of the board of directors, right? So, what is the answer for this question?
B, large block shareholders.
Yes, D, large block shareholders, right? Then, second method is executive compensation. Executive compensation is when you pay high salary. So we saw one way is giving them very high stock, ownership. So we already discussed that if you give a very high stock ownership to the top management, then they will definitely be motivated to increase the stock price, right? Or you can also give them very high salary so that they do not think of uh, you know leaving the firm and switching basically to some other firm. So if you pay them good money, they will stay and be dedicated towards the firm. Now it also has you know it's debatable. It also has both pros and cons. It is a very controversial topic because some people believe that top management team members have a great deal of responsibility for a firm's performance and that they should be rewarded accordingly. Others feel that they are greatly overpaid and that their compensation is not as strongly related to the firm performance. That should be the case. So basically, the logic is that these top management generally become synonymous with the firm. So, like whenever you hear Tesla or Twitter, the first image that comes to your mind is Elon Musk. When you hear Apple, you think Steve Jobs, Tim Cook, right? Uh, then you hear Google and Microsoft, you think Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella. So these people they become synonymous with the firm. So their decisions affect firms a lot. What do you think? Do you agree that their compensation should be that much? Do you know how much these people get paid? What is their compensation generally? And do you agree that they should be paid that much, or you feel that they are overpaid? How much does Tim Cook get paid? How much is his compensation? Any guesses?
I'm not sure, but I think it is millions of dollars or
How
something.
many millions do you think?
I don't know, but I do not agree that they should be paid that much. There is really no reason, even with uh, making decisions that are in the benefit of the company. No, I don't believe that.
Okay. Others?
I mean, I looked it up. How much does Tim Cook earn? And it says last year he made 74.3 million. That's like between everything. So like the base salary is like 3 million, and the stock was like 57.5 million from like stock awards and other
Right.
bonus. Um, as for like if I think like he deserves to make that much, like I do think it's like a lot of money, but I guess like perspective is very important because he is managing like Apple is like what, like 4.2 trillion at this point, like the size of the market cap. So it is a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. So obviously the compensation has to follow that level of responsibility.
Right, right. So we get a different point of view. Good, good. There should be supporters of the both the POV, in my opinion. So if you look up the compensation of the CEOs, like for example, I don't remember whether it was Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai. One of these guys got 226 million back in 2022 or 2023 because of stock prices. Because their base salary is generally low, like a few million, but most of the money that they make is through stocks. They have good ownership, they have good percentage of stocks in the firm, so that is why they make a lot of money through that. So, which of course uh, tells us that they will have a motive to increase the share price, and they will be dedicated towards increasing the share price because their compensation is directly attached to the share price, right? So there goes one reason for corporate governance, like how you keep them in check, that they are always motivated towards increasing the value for shareholders, right? And as Robert said, uh, these people's decisions affect the firm directly so much that one decision can result in billions of dollars of profits as well as billions of dollars of losses, right? One simple decision that they make in their day-to-day life can result in billions of dollars of profit for the firm as well. So one argument could be that even if they get like $50 million compensation, what is the big deal? Because they are uh, making the money for the firm in billions. So if they get 1 or 2% of that or 3% of that, how does that matter? I mean, I'm not saying that uh, that is the only way of looking at it. You can disagree, of course, but I'm just giving you the arguments that people give in support of their high compensation, right? So yeah, it's debatable, and there's no right or wrong answer here. Everybody can have different perspectives. Yeah, so the the problem with identifying the right compensation is that the decision making is so complex that nobody can really judge the day-to-day activities of the CEO and top management. And when you cannot judge the day-to-day activities, how will you how will you assess that they are doing a good job or not? Plus, if you feel that the firm is not performing well, it's incurring losses, how will you identify that those tough time is because of the inefficiency of the top management, or is it because the external environment is not good, because there's a recession going on, or the industry as a whole is facing problems, or it is due to some other external factors. So you cannot really separate the effects of external factors from internal, their performance. So that is why it's very difficult to judge whether the top management is doing a good job or not. And yeah, as I said, you will find that most of these CEOs have their salaries linked to stock prices. So that is why they always have a reason to work towards increasing the share price, because their wealth will also increase. And this problem gets even more complicated when your firm is a multinational firm, or if you are, a top management in the subsidiary of the firm in some other country. So, like Microsoft's China branch or India branch or Google's Brazil office, there it becomes even more complicated because pay varies by region to region, and you are managing, maybe if you are in the Brazil office and if you're given a charge of Brazil plus Argentina plus Peru plus Colombia, then you are managing like four regions there, and it becomes even more difficult to decide your salary because they have different pay structure in these countries. Okay, so what about this question? Which of these three methods do you think is the best?
I would say executive compensation
Okay,
because
Ethan
it
says. Mhm.
it like most directly aligns with the owners when like the managers' incentives most likely or most relate to the owners what they want.
Right. Okay. Ethan says executive compensation. Others? Others have no opinion?
I guess the board of directors, since they're able to have the room to like discuss and figure out like the firm's next move and figure out like best interests from different perspectives.
Hmm. Okay. Robert says board of directors. Nobody thinks ownership concentration is a good method.
I feel like I could see how ownership concentration could align the interest of the managerial agents because they have such a large stake in the company that they want it to do
Right.
well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So there is no really correct or incorrect answer here. It's just it's very subjective. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I personally would probably incline towards executive compensation, and probably that is why most of these top CEOs, their compensation is in the form of large stock ownership. But yeah, it's very subjective. You can argue in favor of any of the three. So these were internal governance mechanisms, but of course there are external governance mechanisms as well, like regulators, regulatory agencies, right, and creditors. So creditors generally have, a seat in the board, like the banks. So banks could have one representative on your board, and if there is a bank person on the board, it sends a signal to the market and other creditors that this firm is really taken care of, because the bank's representative would not allow the firm to take any rash decision. Otherwise, the bank will not be able to pay the money back. Or otherwise, the firm will not be able to pay the money back to the bank, right? And if there are representatives from banks on the board, and the firm goes to some other bank to take a loan, then the other banks would be comfortable giving the loan to the firm, because they know that, oh, this firm's board has many bank members, or like say even one or two bank members, so its standing must be good, and it's trustworthy firm, and we should be able to give them money because they will be able to pay us back. So that is how the presence of bank persons on the board really helps a lot. Then what happens with the if the firm is not performing well, if people feel that uh, you know the top management is inefficient, and the governance is poor, so what happens with such firms? There would be takeovers. There would be hostile takeovers, right? And the objective that we saw in the M&A chapter as well was that sometimes the objective is to acquire the firm which is not performing well, and to improve its poor governance, to make it profitable again, right? And they want to basically remove the top leadership, right? They want to replace them with their own people, right? That is what happens with hostile takeover. That is what is happening with the Warner Brothers as well right now, because Paramount is basically bidding a hostile takeover for it. And we have seen some of the methods that firms use to avoid hostile takeover, right? Can you name some of the methods that we saw in the previous chapters?
Poison pill.
Poison pill, yes. What else? What other methods were there? Nobody remembers any other method. Mm.
A white knight.
Huh?
A white knight.
White Knight, yes.
But I thought that was not necessarily a hostile takeover. That was a way to
Which was? Which one?
white knight.
White Knight was to avoid.
They
Uh,
being taken over by a
yeah,
hostile.
yeah. There was this that Tom Cruise does in many of his movies.
The parachute,
Yeah, Golden Parachute,
or the
right?
parachute, yes.
Mm.
There
And
was
then the
also
game. Hmm?
I was gonna say there was also Pac-Man Defense because
Yes,
I was
yes,
also thinking which one applied to hostile takeover. I was thinking Golden Parachute wouldn't apply. That's why I was looking them over.
yes. I was going to say the same. Yeah, the game Pac-Man, Pac-Man Defense. Yes.
And also, I think green mail, like buying back the wholesome buyers shares and premium to make them to go away or something.
Yeah, that is in this chapter. Where did you find it? Or are you reading the next slides? Yeah, the green mail. Yes, green mail was not mentioned in the previous chapters, but it's in this chapter. Yes, correct. So poison pill, golden parachute, we already saw, and as y- um, Yao Kun was saying, I think Yao Kun said green mail, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So green mail is that you would purchase the shares that were bought by the acquiring firm at a premium, and with the agreement that acquire will no longer target the company for takeover. And you can also have a standstill agreement that acquirer will not purchase additional shares. Whatever shares you have purchased, that's okay, but stop now. You will not purchase more shares for a specified period of time. And yeah, capital structure changes like poison pill, right? Uh, this is staggered board of directors, right? The golden parachute. Then regulators. Regulators are um government agencies who keep an eye on the market, the firm's operations. Um, I'm sure some of you might have come across these acts before or not. Have you ever heard these names? Sarbanes-Oxley Act, Dodd-Frank, Wall Street Reform, or have you heard of the scams or scandals which led to these acts? Do you remember any names? What happened in early 2000s which actually led to these acts? Do you remember any prominent scandals from early 2000s, like 2001, 2002?
Sarbanes-Oxley was because of Enron.
Yes, Enron was one. Yes. There was Enron, there was WorldCom, where these firms hid their losses and hid their debt from the market, basically. This was less transparency. They consistently kept showing that their firm was doing well when actually it was not. And when they were exposed, this led to bankruptcy, and that is why the government was forced to come up with these acts, which basically require you to be more transparent with your accounting uh, standards, improve the accounting standards. So this was in early 2000s, and then Dodd-Frank Wall Street basically happened because of the 2008 recession. So, 2008 recession was pretty bad globally. So, ending bailouts, ending bailouts is exactly what the question in today's Kahoot was, which had, the options were not matching with the question. So, it's called moral hazard. So, what is moral hazard? Basically, if the firm knows that, oh, if we are not doing well, if we reach the stage of bankruptcy, we know that the government will step in and bail us out. If you know that there would be someone to save you always, then that would lead to rash decision making, because you know that someone will save you. So if you are an automobile firm, if you are a, say, airline firm, or if you are a big financial firm, and you know that you are very important for the nation, government will never let you close down because it will affect 20,000 jobs or 50,000 jobs. Then you would make more rash decisions, because that is called moral hazard. Like if there is a kid who is very, mischievous, he consistently does some, you know, uh, strange things at the school or with his friends, and he knows that he can harm other kids, because his parents will always come in his support and will, bail him out from the situation. Then he will not stop doing those things, you know. So, ending bailouts. The law was intended to prevent excessive risk taking that led to 2008 financial crisis. That the firm should know that they will nobody, you have nobody to fall back on. There will be nobody who will come to save you if you do this mistake again. Then there was a Walkler rule. Walkler rule is basically, like it's a government rule that restricts banks from engaging in, certain types of trading and investment activities. So basically, if the bank is using the depositors' money to invest in very risky assets, then it could happen that bank might lose a lot of money. And if those depositors then come to bank to pull out their money, bank would not have the money to give them back, and that would lead to the bankruptcy situation. And then it always leads to, snowball effect. If one person comes to bank and says that I want to take out my 1 million rupees, $1 million, and bank says that, oh, we do not have any money right now because we used all the money in investing in, assets, and we lost a lot of money in those investments. Then that person will go and tell other depositors, then you know what, Silicon Valley Bank does not have any, because it happened with Silicon Valley, right? That is why I'm using that name. Silicon Valley Bank does not have any money left, so it's better that we pull out all our money, because otherwise, the problem would get even more severe, and our money would be lost. So that would lead to snowball effect. Other people would also start coming to the bank to pull out their money, and that would lead to the crash of that one bank, and then the snowball effect will multiply in the form of the crash of other banks, because generally it affects the whole industry when it happens, right? So, Volcker rule basically prohibits banks from using their own funds for short-term trading of securities and derivatives, and especially if the trade is not directly related to customer needs. And it restricts banks from having relationship with certain kinds of, hedge funds and private equity funds, which are known as covered funds. So, yeah, it basically prohibits banks from investing in covered funds so that they do not engage in too risky investments. So yeah, as I said, creditors, that is, banks, if there's a bank appointed directors on the board, then it serves as a certification role. It gives confidence to other creditors that their interests are being represented, and firms with better governance and firms that have bank appointed directors, they often obtain lower interest rates because banks are confident about their, returning back the money. And basically, it's like your credit score. If it's your high credit score, then banks would be confident in lending you money, right? Okay, this question.
B.
B, okay. Anybody else? Yeah, it's B, right? It's pretty straightforward that top level managers should be held most accountable because they are involved in the day to day activities, day to day operations of the firm, right? International corporate governance. So the corporate governance standards have been changing and improving globally because of so many crises that have taken place in the last 30 years. That was There was dot-com bubble, East Asian market crash in late 90s, early 2000s. Then there was 2008 recession. Then we saw COVID, and even currently the market is not in a great shape. And also because of more globalization, firms are trying to have a global acceptable standards everywhere. So like the accounting standards and other quality measures, they are converging because otherwise it becomes difficult for people to operate in multiple countries if they have to use different accounting standards and other things everywhere, right? So that is why recognizing and understanding differences in various countries' governance system and trying to make a common government governance system as well. So the first country that we see today is Germany. So Germany, historically, the firms there have not given as high returns to shareholders as firms in US and UK tend to give. I mean, UK is known as London is known as the financial capital of the world, and besides New York City. So of course, shareholders get the highest returns in UK and US. Returns in Germany have historically not been that high, but things are changing there as well. And banks tend to play very important role both in Germany as well as Japan. We will see Japan on next slide. And there is a two-tier system in Germany. So if a firm has more than 2,000 employees, then it would have two-tier system in board of directors. One tier will take care of the management, that is they will do the managing functions. The other tier would be monitoring the managers, and it would be separate. So if you are a part of the top management, you won't be a part of board of directors. So there are both pros and cons with that. Pro is that, supporters say that it helps in lashing, keeping a lash on dictatorial CEOs, like um, rash decisions of the CEOs. But then the opposers say that it leads to slow decision making, and CEO cannot take decision that he wants to, and CEO knows the best about the firm, so it leads to slow decision making as well as sometimes not the most efficient decisions. So Germany has had that problem. Japan, as we know, we should relate it to the culture. So it's Asian culture, collectivist society, very high culture of consensus. So, and I've mentioned couple of times, there's a history of you know family-owned business groups in Japan, Korea, other parts of Asia, and all, right? So the firm is also treated like a family. If you join a firm, sometimes you spend your whole life in the same firm. Um, so that is why Kiritsu is a big concept there. And the bank, so this Kiritsu would have a bank as well. So Kiritsu would have everything. They would be selling toys as well as vehicles, as well as food, as well as financial firm. So they would have a bank as well in Kiritsu, and then bank will take the central role. So bank will not only lend money to all the firms in the Kiritsu, but will also be very important in the decision making process, like controlling like who can sit on the board of directors of different firms, what decisions to make, etc. And yeah, so this so these issues also have led to a lot of changes in the last few years. So like in the last couple of decades, the corporate governance practices in other countries like Germany and Japan and have also shifted towards that of US, like the American way of corporate governance. So a lot of deregulation has also taken place in the financial sector in these countries. So till now, it was mostly the family members or family confidants, the close members of the family. They used to be on the board of directors, but lately, a lot of independent board of directors have also been, placed in the board. A lot of outsiders and independent board of directors, their numbers have increased in Japan. Then the third country is China, and we know that in China, CCP, the government plays an important role in corporate governance. So many companies have to have one member from CCP on their board of directors. And that is why firms also try to keep good relations with the government. They try to develop political ties because um then there would be less fear of bankruptcy if there is government backing. But lately, there has been a gradual decline in the equity held in state-owned enterprises. That is, state-owned enterprises are not controlling that big chunk of equity which they used to control in the past, and the number and percentage of private firms has grown. So government is promoting more private equity, but domestic private equity, not international private equity. They want domestic Chinese firms, private firms to have more role in the market and in governance. Not necessarily, they are not necessarily welcoming foreign private equity, foreign private firms in the equity. But there as well, the model of corporate governance is shifting towards the Western model. So this was corporate governance, was very important chapter because I know that all of you guys will one day become CEOs and will be on the board of directors of different firms. So should start practicing of that. So this was our last chapter. We just have one case tomorrow. I did make a submission link for the case, right? I hope I have not forgotten to make submission link. Let me check. Okay, yeah, there's submission link for Amazon versus Walmart. So there would be last presentation, last case presentation tomorrow by group 5. And then we have the test day after tomorrow and final presentation. That's it. Right. If you have any questions, you can stay. Otherwise,